Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
We got the podcast below in the description as well.
So there have been a lot of things this college football season, and we've watched a lot of college football that week to week it's hard to predict. Things change. Who's going to play? Who's not going to play? I think one of the things that was pretty clear very early this season is that Michigan don't have it. And John, Michigan don't have it. It's gotten ugly.
Yeah, I mean they got. I don't even know what the final score was. I mean, at one point in time it was I think 35-3.
49-11.
Uh, now Wisconsin's the second best team I'd say in the conference, but they hired Jim Harbaugh to make the playoffs, and I think we gave him a pass those first 2 or 3 years. It's going to take some time. The program had been really shitty. It's at the point now where it feels a little bit like it's regressing, though. I give this year a little bit of a pass. But the one thing I saw someone tweet, if one more person says, "Oh, wait till Harbaugh gets a quarterback," like he's had 7 swings now. And I'm watching college football last night. I'm texting you because you had told me, you're like, this guy at Washington State, Rolovich was taking him to Hawaii. He was a sweet player, brought him to Washington State. And I tweet about him. You're like, keep an eye on him. I just watched him for the first time. Someone's tweeting at me like Ohio State was in on that guy.
My favorite player in the Pac-12 right now, John, Jaden
There are
DeLaura.
quarterbacks everywhere, guys.
Jake Hayner at Fresno State.
You watch college football, there are just solid quarterbacks everywhere. And this guy can't find anybody. Wisconsin, for example, who always has dudes that are like, God, can you imagine if Wisconsin has a quarterback? They now have a quarterback. How can he not find a quarterback, guy? How can he not? And the only conclusion I could come to like late Saturday night was maybe he truly doesn't know about evaluating quarterbacks. Like, for as crazy as that sounds, like he inherited Alex Smith, right? He just talked him into coming. And Trent Baalke was in full control of the personnel, like it or not. And
He
that
was, but
like
Harbaugh was very involved in that pick, remember?
Yeah, but ultimately Kaepernick,
he went to Nevada, played catch with Colin.
Yeah, he played a role in that, but he's had
and he wasn't the play caller on offense, right? We see who was Colin's play caller. He's the Ravens play caller, Greg Roman.
Yeah, and he's had multiple offensive coordinators there. His offensive coordinator now, remember everyone was, oh, he's coming from Alabama. He's going to be awesome. Like, no, it doesn't matter. Unless you have a quarterback guy, and I'm not talking about, I mean, it's Michigan. You should be able to find like the Justin Herbert, the Tua, the Justin Fields. But even if you just you can't find like Anthony Gordon last year at Washington State or like Slovis. You can't just find that version in the Northeast. They're everywhere. He can't find any of them.
I think you're right. I think if they were 9-4 last year, they were 10 wins before that. That's not what you hired him to do, but it is much better than they had been before he got there. But if they were that, and you could see that, and they were really consistently good on offense, maybe it would feel differently. But this feels like it's
Do you think there's a chance
he
gets fired?
I mean, yeah, there's always a chance. The way people are talking about other candidates to me makes me feel like there's something out there. I think I would understand if they did it, because I would understand them looking at it going, we think this is ending. What are we waiting for? It would seem premature to me, though, given that he's got 3 10-win seasons in his previous 5. This year of all years is just one of my, aside from Harbaugh college football takes, is almost nothing means anything this year. Like, if there's a conference champion with 9 wins, fine. 7 wins, fine. But how many games are any of these teams going to play? Over half the SEC had their game. Only 4 top 10 teams played this weekend. Now, 1 or 2 of them was on a bye, but you had all these cancellations. I think Cal played a football game, which they'd had a bunch of guys that were in quarantine on the flight because they didn't get out of quarantine. They went to different hotel rooms. They had like a barrier in the back of their plane. And then they rolled off a plane and played a game that had been scheduled on, wait for it, Friday at 9 a.m. Sunday. In other words, I'm not saying everyone just gets a pass. You can't evaluate anything. But Stanford just played a game Saturday. They got their butt kicked. Their quarterback came out of quarantine on Friday or Thursday and got 1 day of practice. So much stuff to me is just about, I don't care who wins. And when I say that, I don't mean I'm not paying attention and I'm not excited about it. I just mean what matters is that you play the game and everybody's safe at the end and you made your TV money and it works out in that way for everybody. But like to me, if I'm a coach, all I'm thinking about is how do I make sure that when I get to 2021, that like 2020 was really productive for me, that I made my 21 team better by what we did in 2020, that my quarterback, everyone's getting, it's a free year of eligibility. Everybody gets their money back. This is a money back guarantee season. I mean, it's crazy. So
Ryan Day's looking at Justin Fields like, "Hey, bro, we got more time.
I know.
Come back."
Now, I'm
Trevor
not saying
Lawrence,
whoever wins the
like,
championship, take your championship. But this year's insane. And if Jim Harbaugh wasn't a Michigan product and wasn't one of the like pillars of Michigan football, maybe to me this would not be the time to fire to do. I mean, it's not. He's been below what you wanted, but it's still been better than it was.
I think there are a small handful of teams that like Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, who just clearly would have been good no matter what. They're elite right now. They're probably all headed to the playoffs. Florida, not out of nowhere, but it turns out they're the second best team in the SEC, and they're kind of in that mix. I think everyone else, Oklahoma lost back-to-back games for the first time in 20 years. Like I just don't believe like Oklahoma is losing back-to-back games just in a normal year, because history would show me they don't. I've watched them pretty consistently with Stoops and Lincoln Riley, and it just took them a little time. And then if you do have weird shit going on, Michigan, Penn State guy, I think same record, 1-3. Their best player, middle linebacker, pass rusher, kind of this hybrid, he's going to be a top 10 pick, opted out. So right off the bat, a little weird. And then like everyone's like, oh, James Franklin, Harbaugh, gotta go. Well, here's what I know about James Franklin. He's won 11 games 3 of the last 4 years. Harbaugh,
please,
because it's different on Harbaugh with James Franklin. I think the James Franklin even talk is moronic. Harbaugh has the last couple of years kind of been building the overhyped. You and I both agree the overhype is fair, but like, who are you upgrading with? 1 and 2? I do think you need to give him. You went all in for him. He's been productive for you. Sending a ton of guys to the league, winning games. Now their goal is to beat Ohio State. I think history would show you the last like 30 years you don't really beat Ohio State. The Ohio State's a better program than you. It's just a fact. So unless like Urban Meyer's coming to your program, you're just not beating Ohio State anytime soon. That to me is somewhat of a problem. I'm not a Michigan man. I can imagine deep down like the hardcore like that's got to irk some people. Like why is the gap once Jim got there and Urban had already been there a couple years?
Right.
Since Jim's been there, it does feel like the gap has significantly not been bridged, gone the other way.
Yeah.
And it feels like Wisconsin's kind of come in too and like we're way better.
I mean, Minnesota's, Minnesota might not be able to back it up. They might have to.
I do think that Wisconsin kicking your ass now every year, because remember last year, big Wisconsin game, they were up like 21-0 at half and was kicking their ass.
Yeah.
That's 2 years in a row, Wisconsin and Paul Chryst. So it's like, okay, Ohio State, I guess I can live with that, but if I'm a Michigan man, I really can't.
But
Wisconsin being dramatically better than us right now is a problem.
So couple things to rattle through. One, it's hard. Maybe a Michigan person would know this. The other thing that makes it hard to like just watch a game and then have a conclusion is I don't know. I don't know how many players are like just not available to a given team. Your team can be completely different week to week right now, just COVID wise. So just that as an aside. But I do think we're now coming up on, what is this, year 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This Jim is not usually in places this long.
Well, to me, that's the question. Do people like him on campus?
So that's a big part of it, right? So there's that. And then the other part of it is, what if you're the athletics director at Michigan and you go, how many guys do we think can beat Ohio State? Well, Luke Fickell was there. And Cincinnati's pretty good. And if we don't hire him, somebody else might. Like, I think, like, if you have a guy in mind,
never left the state of Ohio, Ohio State guy, born in Columbus, it would be pretty nuts for him to take that job, I think. Even if the money's right and everything, like, that might just be a job. He's like, that's not on my, I wouldn't take that job.
Yeah, maybe. But, and maybe Cincinnati can pay him, maybe. But not at Michigan's
I don't even
level.
Mean because he's staying at Cincinnati.
No, I understand.
He just might. It might be a no-fly zone.
It might be.
I think it probably is.
It might be, but I think if you think you can
would
get
Dabo Swinney have been the head coach at Auburn? Right.
Yeah, I think so. It's a different animal, though. With Dabo, where are you in your career? Because Luke Fickell, it feels like, is about to be able to get whatever job he wants.
Well, he can. Hell, he might be able to get NFL jobs.
He might be able to, yeah.
I'm
not saying Dabo would leave Clemson. I'm just saying.
I do think it's pretty crazy when you're a diehard Ohio State guy, you're from there, you're an Ohio guy to take the Michigan job when you're already making huge money and you have options.
It's about what are your options? Like, Dabo wouldn't leave Clemson for Auburn, but what was his job before that? Clemson wide receiver coach or whatever? What was his job before Clemson head coach?
Yeah, he'd take that. But
he would have taken the Auburn job from there.
If Dabo was the equivalent of Cincinnati's coach.
See, I don't know.
I mean, I can't relate.
I don't
to
know
this.
either.
I
think that's a fair.
These people.
It does, but I wouldn't cross them off the list. It's a fair thing to bring up. My point is just with Michigan, I could understand if you said we got a guy zeroed in that we think is the guy, and we have to get him now before somebody else does. But you're right. Fickell does have options.
I would fire Jim Harbaugh for Luke Fickell. I just don't think that's going to be an option because I don't think Luke Fickell, like Harbaugh, I think these guys in certain areas with certain you once you get to a certain point in your career, because Luke Fickell now is options.
Yeah, he is. He might
you saw with Scott Frost when he went to Nebraska. It's just something deep inside you. I'd be surprised. What I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not possible. Money talks, shit walks. They offer $50 million. It wouldn't be even that crazy. But I'm just saying, I personally will be surprised if Luke Fickell becomes the head coach at Michigan. Because then, is it always a talk if Ryan Day ever leaves? Is he jumping ship? Is it all fake? Is he become a politician?
Yeah. A lot of guys are. I don't know. I don't know his deal.
Remember, forever, I'd say the biggest one in our life, are you going to go? Are you going to go? People forget this, was Roy Williams when he was at Kansas.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like Kansas and North Carolina were like North Carolina and Duke, right? It was just they were separate, even though they were both powers. It'd be like if Luke, if we were talking about the Auburn, or not Auburn, but LSU job or something, Luke Fickell would be a no-brainer. Or Texas, Luke Fickell, no-brainer. I do think the Michigan thing, Roy Williams wouldn't have taken the Duke job, right? You wouldn't think once you're at Kansas. Now, I'm not saying Cincinnati is Kansas, but you just know what I'm saying.
Once you're at a certain level, you get to be choosy. And you can choose things that are just personal preferences.
Yeah.
And Michigan,
I don't know much about Luke Fickell, but I
like him. I know that.
Yeah, I do think there are people in college football that take a lot of pride from a select few group of schools, and it does feel like the Ohio State guys are pretty fucking loyal Ohio State guys. And that Michigan thing is real for them. Same with Michigan, Ohio State.
Well, you're just used to being
Ohio State's on a higher level. It's like you wouldn't leave
you're on the top tier.
Yeah, you're just the cream of the crop. Is it